And it's a very good morning to former Canterbury player and cricket coach Gary McDonald from the beautiful city of Nelson. Gary, welcome to Absolutely Famous. And how's things in Nelson today?
Well, no, it's we've got a heavy rain warning, and we've got two rugby club semi-finals tomorrow, which I wanted to go over to Motueka to see one, but I don't think I will. Sunny Nelson's not really living up to its name, except for 1 or 2 days a week at the moment, John, so it's a bit disappointing. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's a bit like that on the Gold Coast here. It's not very golden. Beautiful day today, though. And talking about beautiful things, watching England play cricket at the moment, Gary, I think the revolution started the moment Brendan McCullum walked in to coach them. It started against a 3-0 whitewash against New Zealand, and I think with McCullum and Ben Stokes as captain, are we watching a revolution of Test cricket?
Well, I think we possibly are, and isn't it amazing, really? I mean, because these guys are basically the same players that, got beaten up in the Ashes and won one Test out of 17 or something, and they're basically the same players. So the transformation of that team is absolutely remarkable. In fact, you and I go back a long way watching cricket, John, and I don't think I've ever seen a team transform like that so quickly. And it's got to be put down to the coaching staff and the captain, and it's got to be. But it's absolutely amazing to watch it unfold. I was watching it the other day, and if all countries follow this line of playing, and I think they will. Players like perhaps your Jeff Boycotts and your Pujaras from India who bat the hell out of it for days on end. Have they actually got a place in the game? That's, possibly that's a little bit sad if that's the case. But so be it, I suppose. It's just very, very enlightening and great to watch, isn't it?
Oh, it's fabulous. It is. It's like T20 cricket played over 5 days. And it strikes me that Brendan McCullum walked in. He's never coached a Test side before. Ben Stokes has never captained a team of any significance before. They go in there with a completely open-minded, clean slate. And they seem to have unshackled these players.
Yeah, I think that's a very good word, because they have. And, to be fair, there was only one way the England cricket team could go anyway, and that was up, because they couldn't have got any worse. They were diabolical, and their record would speak for that. And also with Stokes and Baz, you've got two pretty influential players on the world stage who when they speak, whether they've coached for years or captained for years or not, but, when they talk and address that team, I would say you could hear a pin drop, because, I know Brendan pretty well, and he's a man of few words. Don't know Stokesy that well, but I don't think he goes overboard with oratory stuff either. But when they talk, I think people listen, and it's just been, an incredible transformation. I think different coaches in different countries will now be planning how the hell do we combat this, and so I suppose every time there's a reaction, there's a reaction. So it'll be interesting to see how we stop this, really.
Yeah, well, long may it continue, and I think that what epitomises England, the player that epitomises the change so much to me is their left-arm spinner Jack Leach, who not so long ago looked pretty much like a struggling second-grade club bowler. No one had any confidence in him, including himself. And all of a sudden, against New Zealand in the last Test, he takes 10 wickets and he's opening the bowling in the second innings, and he obviously feels wanted. What a difference.
Yeah, well, it's a miserable day here, John, and you haven't made it any better by bringing that up for me. But you're so right, and it's just, look, I was a left-arm spin bowler, as you know, and when I was playing first-class cricket, there was a number of really good spinners around, And I know what it's like to be sort of picked as the second spinner and not really sure whether the batsman or the team really sort of value you that much. So I know what it's like to be like that. And Jack Leach must have felt very much like that for most part of his English career so far. But then he jumps into a team where you get the management that says, look, you're our best, excuse me, you're our best spinner. We really rate you. And we think that you're hell of a valuable and very important. Now, all of a sudden, no matter whether you're a batsman, spinner, fast bowler, whatever, if you get that sort of information coming across your bows, of course you're going to grow another leg and feel like you're 10 feet tall. And that's probably where Ajaz is at the moment, where he must be feeling like, well, what sort of, how am I valued in this team, you know? And Ajaz Patel to me is a far better bowler than Jack Leach. And good luck to Jack Leach, you know, fair play to him. I'm over the moon for his figures and that. I just wish it wasn't against us. But Ajaz Patel, you know, I mean, how's he feeling at the moment, the poor guy? And, you know, I was listening to Jeremy Coney yesterday talk about it, and he sort of summed it up and said, look, I'm not sure whether whether some of the management and the selection panel of the Black Caps actually know that Ajaz Patel is actually a citizen of our country.
Good point.
Which is typical Jeremy Coney, bloody tongue-in-cheek, bloody dry humour, but I couldn't help laughing about it. But, yeah, well, Jack Leach has, you know, done a good job and was man of the match against us, wasn't he? And so, yeah, fair play to him.
Yeah, which brings us to the New Zealand situation. You know, we suffered a 3-0 drubbing to England, but the way they dealt to India, we know now that's not a total disgrace, but what has really disappointed me, and I know yourself, is the neglect of Ajaz Patel and the apparent reluctance of New Zealand to embrace the value of spin bowling. And we went into that last test effectively with 3 bowlers.
Yes, well, we did. And one of them was out on his feet. You know, Southey was just having a tough time, and he was out on his feet. Bolty was running on fumes, and fair play to him. We had a fresh bowler in Wagner, and we had a part-time spinner in young Bracewell. Well, not young, he's about 30. Bracewell. So you know, we were probably down to 1.5 bowlers if you really think about it.
Yeah.
But so that was a real mistake. And look, you know, it's John. I'm not saying for 1 minute that the selection of Ajaz Patel would have made a lot of difference. I personally think it would have, but that's not the point. The point is how we. Well, there's a couple of things. One is that we'll never know that because he didn't play and hasn't played or hasn't been used when he has been selected. And the other thing is just it's just a policy that we've had, which I. And I think it's fair to say yourself, have been banging on about this for a year now. It's not just this series. It's happened in the couple of series beforehand, and it's just a policy that we have. And you know, we cannot ignore the signs anymore. We can't ignore that this policy, the signs that this is doing to our cricket, and not having the balance of our attack. And, you know, perhaps if I could just get onto the tactics of that series a little bit, which will make a little bit more sense about Ajaz, is that, I mean, in retrospect now, if you have a look at our series, not the last game against India, perhaps, well, yes, even so, but most of the time, most of those top orders really struggled a little bit. And it was the middle order of, you know, Root, Bairstow, Stokesy, and folks that the keeper, and then, you know, who come on when the ball got older. So a lot of times those top orders were sort of, well, sometimes 5 for 60 and things like that. And that was all right because Bolty and that was getting into them for us and all sorts of things. But then when that ball flattened off, that is when that Duke's ball I'm talking about, that is when we just had no answer to their so-called T20 batting, as you say, and it was. They were batting like T20 players once, especially when the ball got flat. We had very fast outfields, good weather in that series, good wickets, and shortish boundaries on many occasions. So once and it happened to us too, our top order was struggling, the English top order was struggling for most part, and then the ball flattened, and that is when we were really found wanting with our selections of our bowling attack, because it was all the same and one-dimensional. We didn't have a decent spinner. Well, that sounds a bit unfair on Bracewell, but he's only been doing it for a year or two. So, I mean, he could develop into a very good spinner. But at this moment, as we speak, he is not. He is a part-timer. And the other thing, to your point, which is sort of in retrospect, when you've got to be careful about talking about retrospective things, but they were coming at us, like you just alluded to, in T20 mode. They were batting like a T20 game. Now, we never responded to that at all. We just kept bowling test match length, and we had tired bowlers who were biffing it up there, trying to swing it and nick off and all that sort of thing, while they were playing T20. So you have to ask yourself, well, when you're watching a T20 game, why don't they have fields like that? Of course they don't. They have different fields. They have men out and things like that. And you can say, oh, well, that's easy to say now. But my point is that we had like Williamson and Bolt that had just come off the IPL. They'd only just got off the bloody plane. They'd been playing that sort of stuff. So they should have been very aware, I believe, what was happening at that point in time. So it's not in hindsight, really. It was just a lack of adjusting to what was happening. And I think that was probably where we let ourselves down, even more so than the selection of Ajaz Patel, who I think was a poor one, and everyone with a bit of a little cricket nous knows that. If we still have people of influence around this country that still think that's the way to go, well, it's about time they were moved on pretty bloody quickly, in my view. But it was also the tactical side of it where I think we were poor. So that's how I feel about that series, really.
Yeah,
Excuse me, I've just got a bit of a cold, mate.
No, that's all right, mate. No, it was the whole thing was disappointing on one hand, but it was extremely exhilarating watching the way England played the game. And I was interested to hear a comment from Steve Smith yesterday that he said it'd be interesting to see if England carry on, if Stark and those boys, have got a juicy wicket, whether they'll play the same. But he said the Aussie boys have really enjoyed watching, the way England have played. It's excited them, which is, I can imagine Australia taking them on the same way.
Oh, look, I actually spoke to my wife last night about the Ashes series coming up in 23 over in England. And she's just as avid cricket follower as I am. And that's just mouth-watering, that next Ashes series. I mean, I just think we're going to have to go, mate. I really do. I mean, I know my country's not involved in it, but I mean, it's just going to be tremendous. Yeah, that typical Australasian relationships, that comment of Smith's was reported a little bit differently than what you just said.
Yeah.
And in fact, the media here tried to put a bit of a negative slant on it. So they're mocking them.
Yeah, which it totally wasn't negative either.
Was it?
No, well, Smithy was what he was saying is he was quite right. He was saying, well, let's see if they can do it against our attack on a juicy wicket. But he said his boys, they love watching it.
Yeah, well, to be fair, England couldn't do it against our attack on a juicy wicket either. Not at the top of the day, in the morning time, I mean, because their top order were getting knocked over, except for the odd, thing. So, but it's how you manage that middle stuff when that Duke ball, this current batch of Duke balls don't seem to be very good to me. I know the players are complaining about it. But once that seam goes off it, and if you get good weather and flat wickets, like can happen in England, but not very often, it just happened to be almost a vintage sort of cricket summer, isn't it, over there? And, it's how and the Aussies are going to have to adjust just like everyone else didn't. So, a juicy wicket and those attacks. I mean, the Indian attack's not bad either.
Very good.
And let's face it, we had two out on their feet bowlers at the end of that third test. And we also had the one bowler the Poms didn't like was Jameson. And he got injured. So, there's a number of sort of contributing factors about that. I think the Aussies, they'll certainly come at them and try and think of ways. But, when New Zealand have been the run-through Test champions and the Indians aren't too bad, and we haven't been able to cope with it. So, and I don't think Australia at the moment are that far ahead of those two teams anyway. So we'll wait and see, I suppose. But typical Aussie fashion, they're going to talk themselves up, aren't they?
Yeah, they won't die wondering, the Aussies, that's for sure. And just on a positive note for the Kiwis, Gary, was a wonderful batting of Daryl Mitchell, 3 tons in the series, and he hasn't been a revelation because he's been like that from the start. He's just looked the part.
Yeah, he has, and oh God, I mean, we don't like anyone getting injured or sick or anything, but he might not have even been playing much of a part in these 3 games if there wasn't opportunities because people were injured or sick. I mean, he would not have been playing. He wouldn't have been playing in the first test, I doubt very much, at Lord's. And he's just gone from strength to strength to there. But I mean, he's now turned himself into a undroppable player. He's one of the first names you write down, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think it's here again. I think it's been sad that he hasn't bowled more, because because we still don't know at Test level. We still don't know really at Test level what sort of job he can do. And that's been disappointing for me. I think that we should know whether he can or whether he can't. So yeah, but he has been incredibly good, and his game is built around. We can all talk about T20 and all that sort of stuff and how these guys have batted, but Mitchell's game is based around a hell of a good defence, John. I mean, every time he plays a forward defence, or whether it's off the back foot or the front foot, his bloody bat looks about 6 foot wide, doesn't it? You know? And as a bowler, I know that when someone's defending you like that, when you're bowling at a barn door, you think, oh, my God, I'm in for a tough day here today. How the hell am I going to get through this, So good on him. No, he's been an incredible find. He wasn't found on this tour, but he's certainly been, he's a revelation of his value, no doubt about that.
I was interested to hear that he was brought up in his teenage years playing in Western Australia on the bouncy pitches over there, which is obviously why he's so good off the back foot, which you have to be to be any good at Test cricket, and he is spectacular off the back foot.
Yeah, well, that's right. And, you have sort of 3 or 4 different lengths in cricket, depending on the, depending what you're playing, like a club length at Ensors Road, where we played, is different to a first-class length, and a Test length is always slightly shorter. So you're sort of getting shorter as you go up the gears and the formats. And he plays off the back foot, really well, and as you say, can hook and pull really well. So he's just made for Test cricket, really. So good on him. He's been an incredibly good find for us. That's been a very, very positive thing for us.
Another big positive for me on the New Zealand cricket scene during the week was the announcement that the women's players will now be paid exactly the same as the men for the same job they're doing, whatever format they're playing. This will be revolutionary for women's cricket. You'll see it. It's happened over here in Australia, and almost overnight, you can see how good their team is now, and hopefully the same will happen with the New Zealand. Young girls will say, "Oh, what an opportunity! and I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it is, and it's been overdue too, and there's no doubt about that. I mean, I don't watch a lot of women's cricket, to be honest, so it's not as though I'm a fervent advocate of going down and watching women's cricket. I never have been. I'm probably a little bit of a dinosaur like that. But, these girls have been really struggling for decades now, and it hasn't been fair. And now there is a fairness about it, so that's really good. I've actually got the thing that worries me, John, and I know you're interviewing me, but I want to ask you something because you're in Australia. An Australian woman's model is probably the best, along with the English girls too, in the world, and has been for some years, which is why they are so damn good. And there's no reason why we can't close that gap too with this extra money, which means they don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to play for their country and all that sort of nonsense. But the thing that worries me a little bit about it is that it could open a can of worms here. Look, the other thing with our poor girls too, they had such a bad World Cup that the timing of this, there's a lot of a lot of people over here saying, well, they got to play better. Why are they getting this? That's a very easy thing to say, but that's a perception of that here. So we have to. But the other thing about it is it could open a can of worms. I was reading something the other day that now the netball men, the men's netball team in New Zealand, are now saying, hey, listen, if the cricket girls can do that, we want parity as well with the netball team. So the question I have for you, if you don't mind me doing that and your listeners don't mind, is how did that happen in Australia when the Australian girls started to get recompensed, as they should have been? Was there anything like that?
Not at all, Gary, no. The one thing I noticed almost immediately, there's a revolution of women's sport happened over here the last about 5 years with the AFL, the Aussie rules went professional, the cricket went much more professional, the rugby went to the Olympics, and all of those sports have just gone nuts. The standard, once the ladies are given the same opportunities as the men, the same resources, the same thing happens.
Yeah.
They've developed so quickly, and I watched the highlights yesterday of the England women's soccer team playing Austria in England. 65,000 people there to watch it.
Yeah,
now, that tells me everything.
Yeah. I mean, my just thinking on it a bit is that what you're saying is that the woman integrating into the woman who were sort of minor players integrating now into sort of what have traditionally been men's sports.
Yep.
But what about the other way, like the men's netball team and the things like that?
I know what you mean. No, nothing like that's happened over here. I can't say that it hasn't happened anywhere else, but I haven't. There's been nothing certainly in the media, and I'm not aware of any negative vibes at all. Because the thing about women's sport, as you know, it's a different game. You don't compare it to the men's game. It's different.
No.
But to me, it's just, I've evolved with it too, and I love watching it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I watched every game, every ball of the Women's World Cup here, and I never thought I would. But I did. I got absolutely captivated by it. And, and so, I mean, yes, if there was a game here in Nelson, I would have gone down and watched it, but you would never have got me to done that 15, 20 years ago. But, no, that's all right. I was just looking and thinking, I hope that, there may have been a little fallout with the men's wanting to play what should traditionally have been women's sports, and there's not many really. I suppose there's only really netball, isn't there? And what else do they play? I can't sort of think off the top of my head now, but I thought, I hope this doesn't open a can of worms, and because you got to. It is a different game, and I don't want to talk politics here, mate, but we have a very socialist government here, and everyone's got to be the same. And it just worries me a little bit, and that's nothing to do with the girls getting paid. They're way overdue. But it's just, I just thought, oh, God, I hope this is not another sort of a thing going along that line, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I don't. Well, I hope not. And it certainly hasn't happened in Australia, to my knowledge, to my knowledge.
That's
So
good.
all power to New Zealand cricket for doing that for the ladies. That's fabulous. Before we go, Gary, you're at Eden Park, a wonderful crowd and atmosphere for the All Blacks Ireland Test last week. And what were your views? And there's a lot of talk about Sam Cane, the captain. What are your views on that as well?
Well, I mean, yeah, I was at Eden Park, and I've come back home and analysed that game on the TV in the comfort of my chair. And a beer, actually, because at half time at Eden Park, they bloody well run out of beer. Can you believe that at a stadium like that? It's unbelievable.
In New Zealand, that's
but anyway,
shocking.
Not that I really. Anyway, but no, I don't believe that Sam Cane is in the top 3 or 4 number 7s in New Zealand. I compare him to the likes of Hooper in Australia and the South African boy who's bloody good. That
Gillespie,
guy,
magnificent.
and also, I guess, in World Cup time, you've got to have a feature, and I just think so. I think Sam's a hell of a good guy, and, well, I don't know him, but he looks like he's a nice leader, a nice captain, but he's just not good enough. And the problem we have a little bit in New Zealand is that a hell of a lot of learned rugby scholars and people that know a bit about the game actually know this, but there's been a couple of comments from the All Black management saying that about Sam Cane, because there is a little bit of heat on the guy, poor bugger, but the management are saying that the New Zealand public don't understand what a number 7 does. Well, I tell you what, that hasn't gone down very well in this country, because there are some pretty people that know a little bit about rugby, whether they're All Black selectors or not. And we've seen... if I want to turn the clock back and show my age, we've seen number 7s like Walker Nathan, and we've seen, Richie McCaw and Michael Jones and Josh Cronfield and that. We do know a little bit about number 7s because we've seen the best ever in this country, and in the world in many cases. So to say that we don't understand what a number 7 does is a little bit of arrogant, and it hasn't gone down very well. And that sort of statement just worries me a little bit about the management at the top. I mean, my word, someone's covering someone's butt here. But anyway, I think the Irish are going to come back really strongly to us this coming week. And so I'm looking forward to that game. And I'll tell you, I really enjoyed the Australian-England game too. I thought Australia did really well with 14 men. You've got to tell that guy over there to stop headbutting people when there's 48 cameras on them. He ain't going to get away with it, mate.
No, I think he realised that as soon as he did it. Poor young fella. Yeah, you live and learn. You live and learn. Gary, great to talk to you, mate, and lovely to hear you talk with conviction, which is refreshing in this day and age of the PC world. So have a good week, and I'm looking forward to Saturday's test against the Irish and the All Blacks. I think it'll be a cracker too.
Yeah, and listen, just very quickly, were you pleased with your time in the marathon?
Pretty slow, mate. 1 hour 57, my slowest by 12 minutes, but I was just thrilled. Just a wonderful event. Just great to see all those people out there, achieving things a lot of them didn't think they could, and it's just good fun.
I just don't know how you still do it. Good on you, mate. Fair play.
No, it's good fun.
I'm very envious of you, but I've got no intention of doing it.
No, good on you, mate. Not recommended for everyone. Thanks, mate. Have a good week.
Good on you, John.